It started quietly, no flashing lights, no press waiting outside her door, no music in the background. Just silence. The kind of silence that comes after something breaks inside you. Demet Özdemir had just returned home from a long shoot. The cameras were off, the makeup was gone, and the mask she wore for the world had finally slipped. Her phone kept vibrating on the table, messages, calls, missed notifications, but she didn't move. She just sat there, staring at a single text that had shattered her peace. "You deserve the truth. I can't hide it anymore." It wasn't from a stranger. It wasn't even from an enemy. It was from someone she had trusted completely. For a few seconds, she couldn't breathe. Her fingers trembled as she opened the message thread, scrolling through the words she wished she'd never seen. There it was, proof that everything she had believed, every promise, every late-night conversation, had been a lie. The betrayal wasn't about cheating or rumors. It was deeper. More personal. Someone she considered family had been using her name, leaking private details to the press, selling personal information, twisting her words into headlines. She had felt it for months, the way journalists seemed to know things she'd never shared publicly, the timing of certain stories, the uncomfortable questions at interviews. But she'd refused to believe it. "No, they wouldn't do that to me," she had told herself. Not them. Now, the truth was right in front of her. And it hurt more than she could have imagined. Her eyes filled with tears. She tried to call, but the line went unanswered. Over and over. Each ring only deepened the pain. Finally, she whispered to herself, "Why would you do this to me?" Outside, the city of Istanbul was alive, traffic lights, laughter, people moving on with their lives. But inside her apartment, time had stopped. Demet had always been strong. She had faced criticism, fake stories, social media storms. But this was different. This came from someone who knew her heart. Someone who had promised to protect her. She walked to the window, looking at the city skyline, her reflection pale in the glass. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had just finished filming a scene where her character was betrayed by a friend. And now, reality was mirroring fiction in the cruelest way possible. The phone buzzed again, a new message. "I'm sorry. It was never supposed to go this far." Demet's jaw tightened. She didn't reply. She didn't cry anymore. The tears had dried up, replaced by something colder, disbelief, anger, exhaustion. The night stretched on. At 3 a.m., she finally turned off her phone and sat on the floor, leaning against the wall. Her mind replayed every conversation with that person, every shared secret, every memory that now felt poisoned. And that's when it hit her, this betrayal wasn't just about lost trust. It was about losing a part of herself. In the early hours of the morning, she whispered into the quiet room, "You were the last person I thought would hurt me." No one heard her. But somewhere across the city, the person who had betrayed her was already feeling the weight of what they'd done. Because the world was about to find out. And when it did, nothing, not friendship, not loyalty, not silence, would ever be the same again. By morning, the world had already begun to whisper. Something had shifted in Demet Özdemir's perfect circle. The once tight bond she shared with her closest people was now cracking in plain sight. It began with a leaked article in an entertainment magazine, a piece so specific, so intimate, that only someone who had been in the room could have written it. It described conversations she'd had in private, fears she had never voiced on camera, and one particular line that made her freeze completely. "She says she doesn't trust anyone anymore. Not even him." Him. Only one person knew what that line referred to. It wasn't about a co-star or an old flame. It was about CanYaman, the man whose name had been tied to hers for years, the man she had shared more than just screen chemistry with. And the one who had leaked the information was someone from her own team. When her manager confirmed the truth, that a former assistant had been secretly feeding tabloids for months, Demet went numb. This wasn't just betrayal. It was exposure. "They used your pain for profit," her manager said softly. We'll take legal action. But Demet didn't answer. She just kept staring at the article, her mind spinning back to all the small signs she had ignored, the strange questions, the conveniently timed paparazzi shots, the feeling of being watched even when she was alone. This wasn't an accident. It had been deliberate. She felt her hands shake. She wanted to scream, but her voice refused to come out. Instead, she went to the bathroom, splashed cold water on her face, and stared into the mirror. "Don't break," she whispered to her reflection. "Not this time." But the tears came anyway. That afternoon, social media caught fire. Hashtags like hashtag Demet Heartbroken and hashtag Ultimate Betrayal climbed to the top of trending lists. Fans flooded her comments with messages of support, while others speculated about who the traitor could be. She refused to speak publicly. Her silence only fueled curiosity. And the internet turned her pain into a puzzle the world wanted to solve. Meanwhile, the person behind the betrayal, her former assistant, had vanished. No posts, no statements, no trace. But whispers started to spread that another celebrity figure had paid for those leaks. And that name was one Demet had never expected to hear again. It was someone from her past, a man who had once wanted her in his project but had been turned down when she chose another path. Out of professional jealousy or wounded pride, he had apparently orchestrated it all, convincing someone inside her circle to sell stories. When Demet's team told her, she laughed bitterly. So this is what the world has become? People buying pain? But deep down, what hurt her most wasn't the headlines, it was that she had trusted someone enough to let them close enough to hurt her. That night, Demet sat on her balcony, scrolling through hundreds of fan messages. Some told her to stay strong. Others begged her to speak out. One simply said, "We believe in your heart." That one message, short, kind, pure, broke the dam she had built around her emotions. She cried until there were no tears left. Then she opened her notes app and started writing. Not a statement. Not a PR message. Just truth. They broke my trust. But not my voice. I won't let betrayal define me. You can hurt me, but you can't silence me. She didn't post it. Not yet. But it was the first step toward taking her power back. Because the next day, when the cameras would catch her again, walking out of her house, eyes calm but defiant, the world would see a different Demet. The one who was done being a victim. The one who was ready to fight back. 2 days later, Demet walked into the same world that had once crushed her, but this time, she wasn't the same woman. Her eyes, though tired, burned with a quiet determination. The pain was still there, but it no longer controlled her. It had become fuel. The morning shows were still talking about her. The tabloids were still chasing headlines. But Demet didn't hide. She appeared at a charity event in a simple black dress, no bodyguards, no entourage, no fake smile. When journalists surrounded her outside the venue, she didn't run. She looked straight into the cameras and said calmly, "Not every story you hear is the truth. Some are written by people who lost their own." It wasn't a full statement, but it was enough to silence the crowd for a moment. That clip spread across social media within minutes. Fans called it the calm before the storm. But what they didn't know was that Demet had already set her plan in motion. Behind the scenes, she was working with a small team of legal experts and investigators to track down where the leaks had come from. Not for revenge, for closure. For truth. The investigation uncovered what she feared: her former assistant had been paid through an untraceable transfer. But then came the twist: one of the leaked emails included a contact linked to CanYaman's old PR manager. When Demet saw the name, her heart sank. No, not him. He wouldn't. But doubt crept in. Could Can have known? Could someone in his circle have betrayed her too? For years, she had fought to keep their connection out of the public eye. Even after their separation, she had protected him, avoided questions, refused to speak badly about him, defended him in silence. And now, the very people once connected to him had used her vulnerability for attention. That night, she sat on her bed, scrolling through her gallery, old photos, behind-the-scenes memories, moments that once felt like home. Her eyes stopped on one photo, Ken laughing, his hand brushing her hair away from her face during a shoot. She whispered, "Was any of it real?" Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. It was his voice. Soft. Low. Demet. For a second, she didn't respond. Then, quietly, "You shouldn't call me." "I had to," he said. "I saw what they did to you. I didn't know about it, I swear." "I'm sorry." Silence. She could hear him breathing, nervous, desperate to say something that might undo the damage. "Someone from your team is gone," he interrupted. "I fired them this morning." "Then you knew it was true," she said coldly. He hesitated. "I didn't believe it at first. But when I saw your face on the news, his voice cracked." He stopped talking. "You don't have to protect me, Can," she said softly. "You just have to stop letting people use what we had." "What we had," he repeated. "Demet, it's not over for me." Her heart skipped a beat. She wanted to scream, to cry, to hang up, but instead, she whispered, "You're too late." She ended the call. For a long time, she sat in silence, staring at the city lights. Then she opened her laptop and wrote a single sentence, "Sometimes forgiveness begins when the wrong person says sorry." The next morning, she posted it. No hashtags, no explanation. It went viral instantly. Millions of comments, thousands of theories. Some said it was about her assistant. Others said it was about Can. But Demet didn't care what people thought anymore. Because for the first time in months, she felt free. And yet, the universe wasn't done testing her. Because the next week, CanYaman would do something no one, not even Demet, saw coming. A gesture that would turn her quiet revenge into an unexpected moment of redemption. The media had already begun to calm down. The noise was fading, replaced by speculation and silence. People thought the storm was over. They thought Demet had moved on, that Can had gone back to his projects in Italy, and that the scandal was finally buried. But they were wrong. Because CanYaman wasn't done yet. He had always been the type to act, not talk. But this time, his actions were louder than anything he had ever said. One morning, fans woke up to see a new post on his Instagram, a photo of an empty stage, lit by a single spotlight. The caption read, "When you break something precious, you can't fix it with words. You show it with what you do next." No tags. No names. No mention of Demet. And yet, everyone knew exactly who it was for. Hours later, entertainment sites exploded. The photo had been taken inside a theater in Istanbul, the same one where Demet had performed her first stage role years ago. And the next night, cameras spotted him there in person. He arrived quietly, wearing black, no PR team, no fanfare. He had rented the entire venue for one evening. Not for an event. Not for publicity. But for something else, something deeply personal. As the lights dimmed, a small group of people entered. Actors, directors, a few mutual friends, and Demet's manager. No one knew what was about to happen. Then the music began. Soft piano notes filled the air. A short film began playing on the big screen, clips of their old work together, behind-the-scenes moments, and never-before-seen footage from a charity project they had done years ago. At the end of the video, the screen faded to black, and a single sentence appeared in white letters, "To the one who taught me that trust is fragile. And forgiveness is strength." The audience fell silent. Some were in tears. And just as the lights turned back on, Ken appeared on stage. He wasn't reading a script or promoting a project. He simply looked out at the small crowd and said, "Sometimes, we don't lose people. We lose the right to be in their peace." I did. But I wanted her to know. I understood. Then he walked off stage. No applause. No goodbye. Just quiet. That night, the footage went viral. It wasn't filmed by the media. It was leaked by one of the attendees. Within hours, hashtags like hashtag CanYaman apology and hashtag Demet Özdemir trended worldwide. People called it the most sincere public apology ever seen. Others said it was a PR stunt. But to Demet, watching it alone from her apartment, it was something entirely different. It was closure. She sat in silence as the video ended. The final frame, "Forgiveness is strength," lingered on her screen. Her heart ached, but this time it wasn't from anger. It was from understanding. For years, they had both been trapped by words, by pride, by everything unsaid. But that night, she realized, he didn't owe her perfection. He owed her truth. And he had finally given it. Her phone buzzed again. A message. From him. "You don't have to reply. I just wanted you to see me make it right." She smiled faintly. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel the weight of resentment. She typed slowly, "You did. Thank you." No hearts. No tears. Just peace. Later that evening, paparazzi captured her stepping out for a walk by the Bosphorus. She was smiling, not the rehearsed smile for the cameras, but a soft, real one. Fans noticed it immediately. "She looks free again," one comment said. And maybe she was. Because sometimes forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Sometimes, it's just letting the story rest. But fate wasn't quite finished with them. A week later, during a live talk show in Italy, Ken was asked directly about Demet. He paused, smiled, and said something no one expected: "I'll never stop wishing her happiness." Maybe we needed to break to understand what love really meant. The audience erupted. The clip spread everywhere. Even Demet's team couldn't stop it. But when Demet saw it, she didn't cry. She just whispered to herself, maybe that's his final promise. And deep down, she knew, for once, his words didn't hurt. They healed. The days after Can's public gesture felt strangely calm. For once, there were no breaking headlines, no paparazzi chases, no statements or scandals. The noise that had surrounded Demet for months had faded into a kind of peaceful silence. She was still processing everything. The betrayal, the pain, the apology, the closure. But for the first time in what felt like forever, she could breathe. Her friends noticed it immediately, the softness in her smile, the quiet strength in her voice. She wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. She wasn't trying to fight the world. She was simply living. One morning, she woke up before sunrise, made herself a cup of tea, and stepped onto her balcony. The city below was still half asleep. The air was cool, the sky painted in shades of pink and gold. She watched as the first light touched the rooftops, and for a moment, she just stood there, no makeup, no scripts, no cameras. Just Demet. Her phone buzzed once. A notification from a news outlet in Italy. CanYaman takes a break from acting. Rumors say he's moving abroad to start a new project in silence. She read it quietly, then put her phone face down. No reaction. Just a small, knowing smile. Sometimes peace doesn't come when you forget someone. It comes when you stop needing answers. Later that week, she visited the theater where Can had given his speech. Not for nostalgia, but for closure. The staff recognized her immediately, offering to escort her in, but she refused. She walked in alone, her footsteps echoing on the empty wooden floor. The stage lights were off. Dust floated in the air. She stood at the center of the stage, the same spot where he had stood. For a long time, she said nothing. Then she whispered, "You finally learned how to say sorry. And I finally learned how to forgive." Her voice cracked, but this time, the tears that came weren't painful. They were clean, freeing, almost joyful. She looked up at the empty seats and smiled. Thank you, she said softly. Then she walked away, slow, steady, graceful. Outside, her driver handed her a small package. This arrived for you, Miss Demet. No sender. She opened it inside the car. It was a single photograph, the sunrise over Rome. On the back, written in familiar handwriting, for every dawn that follows the darkness. See. She didn't cry. She didn't call. She just held the photo close for a moment before sliding it into her journal. The same journal where the story of her heartbreak had once lived. Weeks passed. The gossip faded. The world moved on. But the lesson stayed. Demet began working on a new series, not a romance, not a tragedy, but a story about rebirth. The first episode was titled After the Storm. At the press event, when asked if the story was inspired by her life, she smiled calmly and said, "Every story is, in some way." Her eyes glimmered with quiet truth. The crowd applauded. Cameras flashed. But for the first time, none of it felt like a performance. It felt like peace. Somewhere far away, Ken watched the clip online. He smiled, not the smile of a man who wanted to return, but the one who finally knew he could let go. He turned off his phone, stepped outside, and looked at the sky. The same sunrise they had both photographed in different cities now stretched above him again. He whispered, "She's fine now." And maybe that was his final promise. Not to protect her, but to trust that she could protect herself. As the screen fades to black, her voice echoes softly, a narration, timeless and calm. When you survive betrayal, you don't just heal. You become your own safe place. And that's the kind of love no one can take from you. Fade out. Soft piano plays. The last words appear on screen, the end, or maybe, just the beginning.